It's official. Max Verstappen is a three-time world champion. The Dutchman is well on his way to immortalising himself as one of the greats in Formula One's book. But despite his obvious dominance, some have cast their doubts over his achievements. That and the three-peater demands major changes to be made in today's video. So, keep watching. Red Bull's Max Verstappen kept the party going for his championship win by delivering an impressive performance at the Qatar Grand Prix on Sunday. He led the race and was followed closely by McLaren drivers Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, with a twist of events triggered by an early collision between Mercedes duo Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Hamilton and Russell engaged in a fierce wheel-to-wheel battle right after the race began at the Lusail International Circuit. The seven-time world champion made an ambitious move, trying to pass his teammate on the outside through turn 1. However, the high-stakes maneuver ended in dramatic contact between the two, creating a bottleneck situation. Hamilton's immediate exit from the race and Russell's pit stop for a new front wing at the end of the first lap meant that two of Verstappen's primary competitors were already out of contention. As the newly crowned triple world champion, Verstappen seized this opportunity and never looked back, confidently securing his 14th victory of the 2023 season. McLaren continued to build on their strong performance from the sprint race as Piastri and Norris achieved a remarkable double podium finish, taking the second and third positions respectively. This achievement was even more noteworthy as they had started the race from P6 and P10 on the grid due to lap time penalties incurred for track limits violations during qualifying. Russell showcased his impressive skills with a remarkable recovery drive, securing a fourth-place finish at the checkered flag. He managed to outperform both Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso, the latter of whom faced challenges due to an off-track excursion and an overheating seat during the race. Esteban Ocon secured the 7th position for Alpine, while Alfa Romeo had a standout performance with their first double points finish of the season, thanks to Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu taking the 8th and 9th spots. They managed to stay ahead of Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull car. Perez's determination paid off as he managed to earn points, despite starting from the pit lane due to significant car changes following his accident in the sprint race. It was an eventful evening for him, marked by 3 penalties for exceeding track limits, but he still found a way to secure a points finish. Richard Bradley, Le Mans class winner, holds the view that only when Red Bull's dominance in Formula One fades, a situation historically engineered for teams in their position, will we truly be able to assess whether Max Verstappen belongs among the all-time greats in the sport. Formula One is unquestionably in the era of Verstappen, as the Dutch driver clinched his 3rd consecutive World Championship title. He accomplished this feat with a strong P2 finish in the Qatar sprint race and followed it up with a commanding performance in Sunday's Qatar Grand Prix. It was the perfect way to round off a weekend where he solidified his status as a 3-time world champion. Verstappen has achieved an astonishing 14 wins out of the 17 Grand Prix in the 2023 F1 season while driving the Red Bull RB19. There is still potential for him to surpass his own record of 15 wins in a single season, a milestone he accomplished in 2022. Bradley cited examples such as Williams and Ferrari, highlighting how they have faced past interventions from the FIA and F1. He believes that eventually a similar situation could arise for Red Bull, and it's at that point when we will truly be able to gauge the extent of Max Verstappen's talent and capabilities. When posed with the question about how close Max Verstappen is to achieving the status of an F1 great on the recent episode of the On Track GP podcast, 2015 Le Mans class winner Bradley responded. He's definitely entering the conversation, there's no question, but I still stand by what I've said, that he is in a position where he's got a great team around him, and obviously the car is very superior at the minute. Okay, when Sergio Perez is having a good day, he gets the most out of it, and he's struggling. There is taking nothing away from Max. I mean, at times this year, he kind of reminds me of the Terminator. You just can't stop him. He's just this unstoppable force that's coming. And obviously, 3 titles in a row. But I still think that if we're talking about the all-time greats, firstly you have to remember, okay, Max has done a lot of races, but there's a lot more races now than there used to be when Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, people like that were doing their seasons. There were only 16 races. So in terms of all the stats, yeah, it's very, very impressive. But weighing it up against those, obviously if you've got a good car, then that period lasts for longer. Now, I think we will see a period where Red Bull won't have the most dominant car, because that's the ebbs and flows of Formula One. And historically, the FIA and FOM have always tried to target the dominant team. We saw it with the Williams situation at the end of 1993, we've seen it with the Ferrari situation at the end of 2004. And there will be a way, and Red Bull won't always have the best car, and then we're going to really see how good Max Verstappen is. But, as I said, don't get me wrong, this year he's been like the Terminator sometimes. With at least 2 drivers requiring medical attention during the Qatar race, Max Verstappen has expressed his concerns, saying that it was way too hot for Formula One to be racing at the Lusail circuit. He has called for changes to be made in response to the challenging conditions. Logan Sargent's race came to an early end as the Williams rookie had to retire due to severe dehydration. Meanwhile, his teammate Alex Albon also faced health issues, necessitating a visit to the medical centre after the Grand Prix. Esteban Ocon disclosed that he vomited inside his helmet, and this happened after just 15 laps into the race. Lance Stroll also shared his struggles, mentioning that he was passing out in the car and experienced moments of fading in and out. These harsh conditions have led to calls for the Qatar Grand Prix to be rescheduled to a different date, with suggestions to consider moving it to early October, marking the end of the scorching Qatar summer. In his post-race interview with Sky Sports after securing the victory, Verstappen remarked that while it wasn't the toughest race he'd ever faced, it was tough, just hot. And I think, of course, we could expect that. This weekend in general was way too hot to drive. If we have to do this again, we should really focus on trying to bring this race later on in the year. When it's 40 degrees out there during the day, I think it's silly to be pushing like this, especially with forced 3 stops. It's almost like a qualifying out there all the time, like really pushing flat out. And that's probably a bit extreme out there. You can see a lot of people when I was walking to the podium that were still laying out there. The challenging conditions were exacerbated by the necessity for drivers to adopt 3-stop strategies, a move prompted by the FIA's decision to limit tyre stints to only 18 laps, primarily for safety reasons. Verstappen expressed how this affected his race, as the limited stints negated one of the strengths of his RB19 car, as he discussed during the post-race press conference. I think that was on the first stint when most of the drivers boxed. My front left still looked quite good. Yeah, I do think that today didn't help us in terms of, our trend is normally long stints and looking after our tyres. This didn't work for us today, of course. They were too limited, the stints. But I do think at one point my engineer told me to speed up a bit and we always had the pace to speed up. I just have to re-watch the race a little bit to understand a bit more what was going on behind me. I do think we had a bit more pace in hand if we really needed it. Despite the challenges he faced, Verstappen made it clear that this doesn't diminish the accomplishments of McLaren. He acknowledged that Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris performed admirably, with both drivers finishing less than 6 seconds behind him at the finish line. He said, "They've been doing a great job, and from us, we see that they're getting closer and closer, so we have to try and, of course, maintain a bit of a gap." So, do you agree with Richard Bradley's thoughts? Tell us why or why not in the comment section down below. And, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.